When I see all the beautiful girls' legs, I want to eat. So I'm not cured at all.
By now, you probably have watched or heard about the Jeffrey Dahmer's case. It's been a hot topic recently due to the Netflix take on it. He was a very infamous serial killer from the USA who was responsible for brutally killing 17 victims and even eating them. Yep, a cannibal. Well, let me introduce you to Asia's Jeffrey Dahmer. Issei Sagawa. There's eerie similarities between the two, and today we will try to see what these two infamous killers had in common and what might drive these crazy cannibals. One big difference is Isse is free and have never been punished for his crimes. Welcome to Spooktober, where we dive into even crazier mysteries. I'm currently watching the Netflix Jeffrey Dahmer's remake, and I have to say, not gonna lie, like the show itself is really good. The actors, like the way it's made, the storyline, everything is good. I literally thought like Netflix probably made some of the stuff out for the shock factor of obviously being a movie, but come to find out, it is almost an exact replica of what someone did in real life. And if you don't know Jeffrey Dahmer, a quick recap, he was an infamous serial killer who was known to target young males. Most, but not all of his victims were also African American. He had up to 17 victims. He would lure them into his presence, and after the victims had been unalive, he would do some crazy experiments with their body parts, including cannibalism, aka eating them. Jeffrey would say that he felt different since he was young, like a baby. And he would have these fascinations with roadkill and dead animals and would dissect them. And he had this fascination and curiosity of what inside like organs looked like. Now in prison, he was diagnosed with something called splanchnophilia, which is a mental disorder in which a person is aroused by flesh and bones, something that a lot of people don't understand. So you might have heard about Issei Sagawa. He's one of the most famous Asian version of like Jeffrey Dahmer, and not only are there eerie similarities between the two, but when I actually looked into the details of this guy, it was a lot darker and more complex than you can imagine. And because of the nature of this video, a lot of times these kind of topics cannot be monetized, so I really thank you guys for supporting and hitting the like button, sharing this video, leaving a comment down below, all help, and especially showing love to sponsors. If you guys have been following me, you know I'm a hairy person. I have thick hair everywhere, girl. So in order for me to keep with my hairy body, thank you so much to our continuous sponsor, Harry's. And shaving is so important because the blade that you use really matters in the way you get rid of hair. Harry's have premium blades and was manufactured in their own factory in Germany, and it gives a close, comfortable, and smooth shave. The handle is also smooth and nice. You can grip it well. They also have different colors. My brother loves the Harry's. Obviously, he shaves his beard, but I use it in my arms, my bikini line, my legs. Their foaming shave gel is super nice. It goes from gel to foam, which is so cool. And the biggest part that I love about Harry's is the fact that they're so affordable. In the starter set, you'll get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, a blade cover, and foaming shave gel, all for $5. I don't know how they do it, but if you just click my link in the description box below, you will get it for $3, y'all. So thank you so much to Harry's for supporting true crime channels, and let's get back to the video. This is Issei Sagawa, a Japanese man born in April 26, 1949 in Kobe province of Japan. Oddly, unlike a lot of cases that I've covered, he was actually born to a wealthy family. His father was a president of a company, and his uncle was an editor for a big newspaper company. Issei said with his own words that his parents, especially his father, supported him a lot, and they gave him a lot of love, including like growing their kids in a lot of nature, which a lot of the times when you grow up in nature, you learn to respect Mother Nature, animals, and you just have like a much more free spirit. But it seems like all of that didn't really get through to Issei. That part was also kind of similar to Jeffrey Dahmer, where, you know, his father always supported him, and yes, there was a rocky relationship between his parents, but still, you know, he went fishing trips with his father, and his father supported him through the military and college and things like that. So it's not like these two really had a very, very bad childhood or anything like that. Issei was born premature and sick. He was said to have enteritis, something within his organs. Doctors say that Issei was not supposed to survive because of how weak he was when he was born, but somehow they did revive him. He's only 4'9", shorter than most women, has a slim, small figure. He was also described to be very introverted, shy, not upfront with people, which all seems pretty normal, but because he was not a great speaker, he loved literature. Ever since he was young, due to his small figure and weakness, he said that he had very low self-esteem. Whenever he would see females or friends, like he couldn't really talk to them. He would just stare at them and have all these thoughts bottled up inside of himself. Another similar characteristic with Jeffrey Dahmer's, where his father said it seemed like Jeff had a very low self-esteem based on the way he carried himself and the things that he told them. He had a lot of problems with self-image. Issei says that ever since he can remember, as young as 6 years old, in elementary school, he remembers seeing his handsome classmate, a male. He saw the classmate's thighs and started to ponder, what would that taste like? Remember, a 6-year-old thinking about this. As he got into puberty, he was confused with his body and all these chemical hormones that was going through his brain. And he said he would do naughty adult experiments with animals, especially his house dog. And he goes on to say that he would look at his female classmates, especially the thigh. And the thing that would pop up in his head was, what would they taste like? He openly admitted that ever since young, he was very attracted to Western women. He considered them tall and beautiful.
なぜ外国人の女性に憧れたかというのは
Another interesting similarity with Jeffrey Dahmer, remember, most of his victims, not all, but most was African American. Now, Jeffrey Dahmer did not openly say that he was particularly only attracted to African Americans, but it seems like there's an unspoken pattern here. With Isse, he says that he was particularly attracted to Western women, and we will later find out that his victims were all Western women. Isse went on to attend university and got a master's in English literature. By his 20s, his urges and curiosity started to take control of his body and mind. His first crime was when he was 24 years old, still in Japan. It was 1975 when he decided to follow a blonde German woman into her apartment. He believes that she was living in the same apartment as his grandmother used to live, so he knew where this was and how the apartment looked like and things like that. So one night he followed her and somehow broke into her apartment when she was sleeping. He claims that his plan was to hit her in the head, kind of knock her out, and wanted to just take a piece of her buttocks, just a small flesh piece, just to see what it would taste like. But of course, the woman woke up and she pushed him to the floor. She started screaming, and before you know it, Issei was caught and was charged by the police. Back then, of course, he didn't actually tell the police what he was actually trying to do, and police just figured out that maybe he wanted to grape the woman, and that's what he was going to be charged. But thanks to his family, they were able to actually settle with the victim, give her some kind of a monetary compensation for it, and the charges were dropped. So similar to South Korea, as I talked about in my other video, R was not a federal offense. It's kind of considered like an independent lawsuit, so if you do settle with the victims, the charges will be dropped and the suspect's fine, free to go. It's not like that now in most countries, but it used to be like that. 2 years later, at the age of 27, in 1977, he would move to France to try and get a PhD in literature, attending a university in Paris. Issei's urges actually even fueled more now that he was in another country, now that he's in a country where it's all Western women. So for him, it was even more triggering, and he probably thought that he could get away with it easier because he's not in his own country. He would say that to fuel his urges, he would bring prostitutes almost every single night, planning what he wanted to do to them in his head. He even bought a gun somehow there. And his plan was to shoot the woman, but every time he tried to do it, he just couldn't pull the trigger, he says. Last minute, he would chicken out, and it just never ended up actually happening. He says by that time, his urges became an obligation. He could not control it. Then 4 years would go by in 1981. Now Issei is 32 years old, and he had a classmate a beautiful Dutch woman named Renee Hartveld. Issei would describe Renee as one of the most beautiful women that he has ever seen. And Issei would just talk about how he loved beautiful women. Like, a lot of it was appearance related. And this is also similar to Jeffrey Dahmer, where he also confessed himself that the goal was to find the best looking man that he can, because that's what he was really attracted to. And according to Jeffrey Dahmer, for him, it was really like a dominance thing along with self-image. Because he has such a low self-image and self-esteem, every day-to-day life seemed like he was being controlled by someone else. But he always wanted dominance and that feeling of gaining control over someone, and that's when he would bring in his victims to dominate them. So for Issei as well, he claims that he loved beautiful women like Grace Kelly. He called himself a weak, ugly, small man. So in a way, I feel like he really wanted to express his dominance, his secret fantasy towards people that he felt it was weaker than them, which was, he felt like it was women. Renee was only 25 years old, again attending the same school in Paris. And she was also the student of literature major. She was 5'11", so much taller and bigger than Issei. And of course, because he knew he couldn't overpower her, he got a gun ready for this whole plan. The two hung out a couple times because they were classmates, and Issei just really had to smile whenever he was talking to her, and Renee felt like he could trust this guy. I mean, what can he really do to her? She's 5'11", he's like 4'9". Issei would then invite Renee for their final dinner together. He told her that he had some kind of a German assignment that he needed to do, and because she spoke German and gave him some German lesson time to time, he wanted her to review his German poetry that he picked out. She would sit in his study chair, start to read the poetry out loud. That's when Issei just creeped behind her with his gun and shot her in the back. He gave chilling details, including when he shot her. She still was talking somehow for just like short couple seconds and then fell to the chair. It's sick. And Issei says that he had this all planned out in his head of what he really wanted to do with her body when she was killed. Like a buffet or like a restaurant you go into, you know what you're gonna order, you know what you're craving. He was doing this with literally humans. He said he was planning this for his whole life, for 32 years, and now he finally got to do it. Now, before he got into those sick stuff, he slept with the dead body. Then he would immediately try to bite into the right buttocks, and he says that it had to be the right and not left because the left was closer to the heart, meaning there was going to be more blood. So he studied all of this. He knew what he was doing. But then his teeth would not go through the skin, so he tried to get a fruit knife. And that wouldn't work either. So he literally left his apartment to get a butcher knife, and it worked. He would then go to mutilate different parts, try them raw, try them cooked, and would put different pieces of the bodies into the fridge for later. He also goes on to talk about his favorite parts, which was also including the face. Now, almost exact what these two did, again similar, was Jeffrey Dahmer also took photos of each steps of what he did to the victims. Issei did the same as well. He took photographs of what he did each step that he went along with the body. According to Jeffrey Dahmer, he claims that taking photos were a way to remember them. He wanted to keep and remember the stage of what he did forever with him. So it seems like this is what Issei also wanted to do, keep these images forever with him. And these two both also say that it was a way to get sexual gratification from doing this, from looking at organs, from consuming it. Like, this was their way of getting the gratification. Now, this was in June, so it was really hot. And you know, in Europe, they don't really use ACs or had ACs, especially this was in the 80s. So he knew he has to kind of get rid of the bodies finally. And he says that he tried to dismember the body, but it was extremely difficult. But he was somehow able to do it and put them into 2 separate suitcases and decided to take a taxi to a nearby lake near his university. The bag was obviously very heavy, and he was getting into the taxi. The taxi driver was helping him with the bag, and the taxi driver joked, "Oh my god, this is so heavy. Is there a body in there?" He was joking, but he was right. He got to the lake and he saw many people, so he decided to go around and find a spot where there weren't aren't a lot of looking eyes. He finally found the spot, pushed the bags in to the water, and exact moment he says that he started to look up at the sun and he was mesmerized by the sun. During those couple seconds or minutes, a French man came by and he asked him, "Are these your bags?" I guess the bags didn't fully go into the water, or maybe it was just kind of floating. Issei says that no, it did not belong to him. So the Frenchman thought, it's not his, so let me open it. The man opened the bag, finding bloody bed sheets, and he started to scream murder, and Issei just casually walked away. Of course, he was later arrested 4 days later by the French police. His family was able to hire a defense lawyer for him, and he was in captivity for at least 2 years awaiting his trial. During the time, he was evaluated by French psychiatrists. They ruled that he was actually legally insane. Because he was ruled legally insane, the judge ordered him to be sent to a criminal psych ward instead of prison. Now, even by now, within the 2 years, his story has gone viral in Japan, and he was almost just infamously well known. Shortly after he was sent to the psych ward, apparently the French authorities didn't want to keep him and wanted to deport him back to Japan. According to Issei, they thought that it was a waste of money, like resources for this random foreigner in their country. And for whatever reasons, they decided to just deport him and drop the criminal charges, thinking that they would just transport him to a criminal psych ward in Japan. But apparently, because they dropped the charges, because the case was never like transferred or anything, legally he was a free man. When he was deported, he would stay at a hospital in Japan, but soon, because there was no legal reasons why he would have to stay there, he just checked himself out, and he's been a free man ever since the 80s. He claims that he never received proper treatment, nothing. He just went home, like end of story, end of the day. But the Japanese doctors did declare while he was in there that he wasn't insane, but he was sane and just had a personality disorder. And his motive was because he just had a perverted sexual fantasy. I guess his family cut him off and he had no job and no income. And he started to get all these media requests because Japan found his story fascinating. He was requested to draw comics about his fantasy, to write books, to have like short movies / films where he would act in them, and he would draw comics about his fantasy, which included like recreated versions of what he did to Renee. Unbelievable. And he wrote up to 20 books so far. He would also get into drawing and paintings of what he considered a beautiful woman, and he was just obsessed with this. He'd also hire a manager and he would sell his paintings, and this is like how he kind of started to live, like have an income. And I do think partially he really didn't have any money and he needed a way to get an apartment, feed himself. He kind of had to like capitalize on his sick criminal deeds. In one of his 20 books that he wrote, he included photos of Renee that he took. Like literally the step-by-step of what he took, like the sick photos that are out there. If I was the family, I would be so angry to the point where you would not even, like, I can't even imagine what I would have done. I don't know if Renee's family tried to do something legally to stop this guy from doing this, but I guess it's like another country, it's in Japan, so like that just complicates things a lot. He claims that he regrets that he published the photos of her because fans would ask for his signatures with the copies of his book and would ask for signatures, especially in those photo pages. Like the people who actually buy these books, ask for autograph in this specific page, are also sick in the head in my opinion. He was requested and accepted like these film kind of stuff that he did, and also including adult film videos with the concept of him actually being a cannibal in these adult films.
When I see all the beautiful girls' legs, I want to eat. So I'm not cured at all.
Like, who are these production people? I mean, clearly this is all about money and fascination here. I think the worst part is that, especially in like the Vice interviews and interviews that he does, he opens his books, he shows his art and paintings, and especially the photos, what he did to Renee. He's like showing it off like this is his photography work. He's just so casual about it, and I just think that is so wrong. Nobody's stopping him here. Like the society is also telling him, hey, good job. Like, they're literally encouraging this guy. And this guy is already disassociated from all these kind of shock factors. So the fact that you're also encouraging him to do this, I just found that whole mindset to be just sick. He would attend parties, events, pictures with other Western women. And he would even travel all around the globe, just really enjoying his life. Today, Issei is in his 70s. In his most recent interview, he says that now he's graduated from Western women and is now attracted to specifically Okinawa beautiful Japanese women and describes them as they look delicious. A very interesting thing that Issei said in the Vice interview, he says that after his parents died, he was in shock but didn't cry. And even after his killings, he was in shock, but he says that he can't feel remorse. Like it's fascinating how he's self-aware. This guy, like, he's actually a great talker. If you just see him talk in his videos, like, he looks normal.
Then her family, my parents, my brother, everything, everyone.
In the most recent update, he's living with his brother now because he has a very bad health condition. He had a stroke, he had like heart problems and things like that, and his brother is taking care of him. In the most recent article, Issei said, if a normal man fantasized a girl, he'd naturally feel a desire to see her as often as possible, to be close to her, to smell her and kiss her, right? To me, eating is just an extension of that. Frankly, I can't fathom why everyone doesn't feel the urge to eat, to consume other people. The desire to eat becomes so intense around June when women start wearing less and showing more skin. The interesting similarity about the two that I found was even Jeffrey Dahmer says that he knows what he's doing is wrong. These two know and understand that, unlike other criminals who try to justify their actions or blame it on other people, these two solely blame it on themselves, and they know what they did was a bad thing. But it just seems like they're not capable of feeling empathy, sadness, or even tears like normal people do. And these two openly admitted, saying that they didn't have any hatred towards their victims. It's not like they had a bad blood, which is the case for most crimes, which is that they dislike the person and that's why they act out. Personally believe, although I am not a doctor, I personally believe that these two were truly born with this. Jeffrey Dahmer, his father, says that when his wife was pregnant with Jeff, she would take up to 25 pills a day while she was pregnant. And he believes this had something to do with the outcome and something that changed the wiring of the brain of Jeff that made him have such dark urges. Same thing with Isse. He was born premature. He almost died. He was going in and out of hospitals all his life. And maybe, although this part of the story was never told, maybe something did happen when the mother was pregnant with Isse. You can't even take Advil when you're pregnant, or extreme stress actually affects the pregnancy as well. So it's a very sensitive moment when you're growing a baby inside of you, and that's why it is so important for the mothers to take care of themselves and the baby. The biggest difference is Jeffrey Dahmer went to prison and he actually got his karma, a lot of people think, but he was killed in prison by a fellow prison mates. But Isse, he was never punished. He was never treated for his mental conditions and personality disorder. He's literally a free man still today, who is actually a very well-known celebrity in Japan. He only killed one person. Like, I feel like he would have done a lot more, and the fact that he's free to do whatever he wants, he could definitely act upon this. I mean, maybe because he's so famous and like literally everybody in Japan knows who he is, like it's hard for him to do that anyway because they would just avoid him. But he literally said in the most recent interview he still has urges and he wants to do this one more time before he dies. And I feel like a lot of people are not taking this seriously. Although I think what they did is disgusting and evil. In a way, I feel bad for their child self. Does that make sense? I don't feel bad for them who they're now, but their child self, if they were truly born with this, I feel bad for the child self of them. Maybe it is possible to be treated if you were to catch this young. And that's why I really encourage you to tell your children and kids to openly talk about their mind and what they're thinking. I also was brought up to never really talk about my feelings because as in the Asian culture, like you're supposed to bottle up all your feelings. Your parents never really ask you how you are and things like that. And I think that really, really can be dangerous. My biggest condolences and heart goes out to Renee. The fact that her pictures, her sensitive photos are being passed around like that, especially for monetary gain by the killer, not even just by anyone, but the person who took her life and done this. Like, I can't find any news of what Renee's family tried to do, maybe legally in Japan, to stop this guy, at least from spreading the photos. But it seems like nothing has been done or worked. And the family are probably suffering even today because of this guy. But I do think that one positive thing from all of this was that Jeffrey Dahmer and Isse has always been very honest after they were caught about what's really going on in their mind and their deep dark thoughts, and talking about them, trying to understand them, and knowing and accepting that these people exist. Hopefully we can stop it and control it so that these kind of people do not do this ever again. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys have thought about this topic. Remember to support this channel by just hitting the like button, sharing, commenting. I always reply to my early birds, and sharing some love to our sponsors. See you in my next video.